Thanks very much, everyone, and good afternoon. Firstly, I've only recently been briefed about the Capel tragedy. My thoughts are with the family and, of course, the Capel and wider southwest communities. I'm advised there is no ongoing public safety concerns to the local community. I'm unable to really add much more at this stage, as police investigators are currently responding and processing the scene. I've just come back to Perth from the Midwest, from being in Geraldton for some important announcements in the region in TAFE and training, aquaculture, tourism and the COVID vaccine rollout. I hope you are all enjoying the excitement that is gripping our state in the countdown to tomorrow's bounce down. It's going to truly be an historic day for Western Australia. Our thoughts are, of course, with the people of Victoria, who are doing it tough. Our preference was always for Victoria to get on top of the outbreak and to host the AFL Grand Final at the MCG. But I'm confident that we will do the big match justice. But in doing so, provide not just Victorians, but all Australians, a day they will be able to enjoy and celebrate, wherever they may be watching from across the country. Now, today's COVID numbers include one positive case who is in hotel quarantine. This case is a woman who travelled from New South Wales without an approved G2G Pass. On her arrival in Perth on Tuesday the 21st of September, WA Police took all precautions in dealing with someone from an extreme risk jurisdiction. People who come into WA without an approved G2G Pass are turned around at the airport or put into quarantine until the next available flight. Over the past few days, WA Police have sent back a number of people who weren't approved to travel into Western Australia. In terms of this woman, because she entered from an extreme risk jurisdiction, based upon health instructions, she was directed into hotel quarantine and required to undertake a COVID test before being returned to New South Wales on a flight. Now that test has come through overnight, and she's a positive case and will remain in hotel quarantine for 14 days. And WA Police will consider further penalties. I want to stress that at this morning's emergency management team meeting, the Chief Health Officer has advised there is no cause for concern with this case. There were 15 people who were on the same flight. Everyone wore masks and was subject to all pre-flight arrangements. All are in quarantine, all are being monitored, and all have been tested. In terms of her contacts or fellow passengers, 15 close contacts in place as the virus rages in Victoria and New South Wales. An update now on the infected truck driver who tested positive after leaving Western Australia. 47 contacts have now been identified. Of the 13 close contacts, 10 have tested negative. Results for the remaining 3 are pending. Of the 34 casual contacts, 21 have tested negative. The remaining are pending their results or are in the process of being tested. We will, of course, release those results when we get them. Just on the subject of truckies, I can advise we are ramping up requirements for freight, transport and logistics workers from or travelling through high or extreme risk jurisdictions. Changes to the Transport, Freight and Logistics Directions under the Emergency Management Act 2005 will make vaccination mandatory for these workers from next month. From 12:01 a.m. on October 24, transport, freight and logistics workers will be required to have at least their first dose to enter our state. These workers will need to be fully vaccinated within 2 months of their first dose, which means they'll need to have received their second dose by 12:01 December 24, Christmas Eve. Now, this is in addition to the precautions truckies are already undertaking to enter WA from a high or an extreme risk jurisdiction. This includes wearing a face mask at all times when in public, showing proof of a negative COVID-19 test result, or undertaking a rapid antigen test at the WA border, along with the regular COVID testing regime. I have a lot of admiration for the people who work in transport, freight and logistics. They have been keeping our nation and our economy going. But given the nature of their work, we can never be too vigilant. This is about keeping Western Australia safe and strong, and doing what we can to keep the virus out while our vaccination rate continues to grow. Returning to Victoria, where 733 new cases have today been confirmed. The Chief Health Officer has reviewed the situation following the trigger point being met. That means we're obliged to change our hard border arrangements. So from 12:01 a.m. Wednesday, Victoria will be elevated to the extreme risk category, like New South Wales. This means travel into WA from Victoria will not be permitted, except in extraordinary circumstances. My message to anyone who has an approved G2G Pass is to come home now. It is heartbreaking to see what is happening over East. Of course, our thoughts are with our fellow Australians who are struggling with the Delta outbreak, but we have to act now. The growing case numbers are simply too big a threat. I repeat, if you are in Victoria with an approved G2G Pass and want to return to WA, you need to do it now, before the border changes come into effect on Wednesday. That gives people more than 4 days to get home. Now to vaccinations. In WA, 63.6% of those aged 16 plus of the population group has now had their first vaccine, and 44.6% are now fully vaccinated. This will continue to grow as we ramp up our rollout. Don't forget, anyone visiting the Perth Royal Show, which kicks off tomorrow, who hasn't yet had their first dose, can now simply walk in and get vaccinated at the Claremont Showgrounds Clinic. Walk-in opportunities like these are part of our efforts to boost our vaccination rate and coincides with the new Roll Up for WA campaign. The only way out of this pandemic is vaccination. Can I close by acknowledging the thousands of Western Australians who will be working tomorrow to ensure the AFL Grand Final is a day to remember. This is everyone on the ground doing their job to support activity around the Grand Final, in pubs, restaurants, managing transport and logistics, in uniform, out of uniform. To everyone who's doing their everyday jobs, thank you so much. Thank you for helping deliver what promises to be a very, very special and historic occasion. It's your effort, your discipline, your community spirit that's meant we can host such an amazing and historic event. An event the whole of Australia will be watching tomorrow here in Western Australia. I hope you all enjoy it. I'd like to now hand over to the Vaccine Commander, Commissioner Chris Dawson.
Thanks, Premier. Can I start by thanking those health workers, police and others that have been protecting our borders so successfully for so long. We've been working very hard to make sure that in WA we enjoy the freedoms and liberties that we're seeing today, tomorrow, and we want to continue to do that. We've been working very hard to offer vaccinations to everyone, but as the Premier has just outlined, we have 63.6% of our population who have received their first dose. In real terms, this means before the end of the year, we still need 1 million vaccinations to be administered. That's because we have others that have to come back for their second dose, and those 4 out of 10 people that have yet to get their first dose. It's really important. If you expect that we can enjoy the freedoms and privileges, such as hosting the Grand Final, we've got festivals, events, concerts this weekend, we've got the Royal Show starting for a week. There's a lot of people enjoying this wonderful environment. We must continue to protect it by getting your vaccines. Today, for instance, we have 29 flights arriving with 3,700 people. Tomorrow there'll be another 18 flights with 1,700 people. We cannot continue to operate like this if we're going to have a proportion of our population unvaccinated. So very heavily stressing, they're available to you. You can go to your GP, your pharmacy, you can go to one of the clinics, and there are many around. We've got over 100 sites around Western Australia, and I'm appealing yet again to the community to go and get vaccinated. You cannot realistically expect to maintain our lifestyle, what we're enjoying at the moment, with this very tight border control we've got, and then not get vaccinated. It goes hand in glove. So that's my message to you, and I'll hand back if you've got questions for the Premier. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Commissioner. Any questions?
Just on the positive case in hotel quarantine, do you know how the woman was transferred from the airport to hotel quarantine, and is that where the two casual contacts were involved?
That's correct. So what happened at the airport is she came in without a G2G pass. She's not meant to do that. We rejected her G2G application on 3 separate occasions, but then she boarded a Virgin flight, and for some reason the airline let her on board, and we don't know why, because they're not supposed to. So when she arrived, we identified her as not having a G2G pass. A couple of officials at the airport dealt with her, and I think they're the close contacts with her. A couple of health and perhaps police officers dealt with her. Our health and police officers were all wearing the appropriate masks and face shields and so forth, so we're very confident that they haven't been infected, but they are considered now to be, I think, casual contacts. So they're the people in question, but it just shows that COVID can slip in. We do everything we can to stop it, but there are risks out there. That's why everyone needs to get vaccinated.
Do you know why she's trying to get into WA?
I think she is originally a West Australian, and she wanted to come back, but she didn't take the opportunity before extreme risk came into effect in relation to New South Wales. So therefore she was rejected. So as we know, the borders are a precautionary measure to try and keep ourselves safe. She had a negative test before she boarded the flight, and so she got on board the flight with a negative test, didn't have a G2G pass because she'd been rejected, but for some reason the airline let her on board. We obviously can't control what happens at Sydney Airport. But she was identified when she arrived. She was dealt with all of the appropriate protocols, health protocols, and she was put directly into hotel quarantine. Because she comes from an extreme risk jurisdiction, we didn't put her on a flight straight back because we had to test her to see whether or not she was positive. When we tested her, it turns out she was positive. And so therefore she's now in hotel quarantine for the next fortnight at least. And so that's what's happened. But you know, the good thing out of this is people will try and do the wrong thing, but our systems worked, and so we identified her, put her into hotel quarantine. We don't think there's been any breaches at all of health requirements, and so we're very confident that there's no outbreak as a consequence of this.
Had she had any vaccination versus?
I think she had. I think she'd had 1 dose of AstraZeneca at least, so you know, I can't go into much more detail about her personal circumstances, but I mean, we send people back all the time who somehow try and get through because they fool the airlines or the airlines don't enforce the rules. So we send people back all the time. But because she came from an extreme risk jurisdiction, which is New South Wales, we then are required to put her into hotel quarantine and test her because she's on an aircraft with other people, and we want to make sure that there's been no risk to those other people. And so that's why the protocol is very specific about an extreme risk jurisdiction, someone coming from an extreme risk jurisdiction. So, look, all of our systems have worked to prevent an outbreak. The people who are on the aircraft are all quarantining and regularly being checked on and tested. They've all tested negative at this point, so we're very confident we've got the situation in hand. The flight crew flew straight back, so we're very confident the situation is in hand. Our systems have worked. We've prevented an outbreak at this point in time.
Can you be specific on the penalties she's facing?
The Commissioner might know the detail of that, but I think if you breach, the Commissioner can provide you with that advice.
You said this happens quite often. Have you had discussions with the airlines about why they're letting people on who don't have G2G passes, and what's the feedback from the airlines?
Well, we have had discussions with them. We've asked them not to do it, but sometimes people get through, and why they do it, we don't know. I've been advised there's been 5 cases in recent days or weeks that have been sent straight back. So, as you know, over the course of the last 2 years, we've sent lots of people back, but in recent days it's been around 5.
Is that in any way
an uptick as a result of the grand final, as far as you're aware? Is it people trying to get into?
She wasn't grand final related, as I understand. I think there has been a few related to the grand final who have tried to slip in that we have sent out. So obviously, very, very, very enthusiastic football fans that they're attempting to do that. But we have sent them back. But the good thing is the system we have in place worked.
Your latest COVID breacher lied on his G2G to get in for the WA grand final. Sorry, the grand final. He came freely from South Australia, but failed to declare he'd been in Queensland. He was only caught because he posted about it on his social media. Is there a chance that this could have?
I don't know about this person. I'm sorry.
Was the latest?
Well, the latest one is the one I've just told you. But I'll let the Commissioner answer that. He may know the details.
Are you concerned there will be more people trying to come in, you know, in the coming hours, sneaking through the border who can't come over for the grand final?
No, I'm not concerned about that because our systems have worked. We have a beefed up police presence on the border with South Australia and the Northern Territory, and our systems at the airport are very strong. We've had, I think it's around 2,000 tourists come from South Australia, and around 750 tourists come from the Northern Territory in the last couple of days. So obviously hotels and bars and restaurants will be the beneficiaries of that, which is a good thing because both South Australia and NT, you can come in if you want to because they're COVID-free jurisdictions. So look, the main thing is here, the systems have worked, and we look forward to a very strong and exciting weekend of football and demonstrating what Western Australia can do and achieve. And the great thing is being COVID-free means we can hold a marvellous, exciting, historic, I expect once-off event like the grand final.
The case I was referring to had come from South Australia, but had been in Queensland. He lied on his G2G, essentially. Is that disappointing? Are you worried that may?
Well, people do the wrong thing sometimes, and I'm pleased police, if that's the way they found out about him, that they did that. Queensland is a low-risk jurisdiction, and the reason it's low risk is it's had maybe 1 or 2 cases in the last few weeks. The reason we've kept it as low risk is its proximity to New South Wales. Otherwise, we would have sent it to very low risk, so it would have been like South Australia and the Northern Territory. So we're not particularly worried about Queensland because really they've had, 1 case or 2 cases in quarantine in the last week. So it's not really too worrying. It's not like New South Wales or Victoria. They're far more worrying jurisdictions to us.
On the new rules for truckies, has there been any consideration given to requiring them to all do rapid antigen tests every time they cross the border?
We're doing that for all those ones who haven't had a PCR test within the prior 3 days. The thing about the rapid antigen test is it's not as accurate as a PCR test. So a PCR test, which is the one you see on the telly, is far more accurate. So we could both require PCR and rapid antigen, but at this point in time we haven't had advice to do that. Certainly something we'll investigate.
The trucking industry wants testing clinics set up near the border in South Australia and the Northern Territory to get results back quicker. It can take up to 3 days from New South Wales. Is that something that you would support?
No, rapid antigen tests give us advice within minutes.
PCR tests.
Look, there's only so many resources. So putting, I think they require, Path West and Clinic Path and those sorts of organisations to do these testings in the heart of the medical precinct in Nedlands. So I don't think it's possible to set up those sorts of clinics or logistically feasible. So that's why we have the requirements we have. Bear in mind, they're the toughest requirements anyone's ever heard of, that you have to get a test on the border before you can come in. So far, over the course of the last 2 years, we haven't had any spread of the virus as a consequence of truck drivers coming into the state. But we put in place these new rules with that rapid antigen testing. Not sure any state's copied it yet, but they're the toughest requirements any state's ever seen.
And that mandatory vaccination for the truck drivers, that's for all jurisdictions, not just the extreme.
No, it's extreme risk. So they've been in high or extreme risks. Sorry, if they've been in high or extreme risk jurisdictions, then they are required to get a vaccine before such time as they come in, and the date was, I think, was the 21st of October or thereabouts, 24th of October, from that point forward. So basically what we want is all our truck drivers who do interstate driving to get vaccinated. That would be a good thing, but the rule is restricted to those who have been in high risk or extreme risk jurisdictions. So I mean, anyone who's been in or come through Victoria or New South Wales shortly, and bear in mind most of the truck drivers, that's where they come from.
Has WA missed an opportunity to promote its state to the rest of the country during the grand final? There's been some criticism that it was a golden opportunity that's been missed.
It's a very exciting weekend ahead of us. We will be the centre of attention of the entire country, and I think we should be very, very positive about what has been achieved. All of our agencies across government have worked to ensure the grand final is held here safely, and we promote ourselves to the rest of the country. So I think we should be positive. I think we should talk up our state, and I think it's a great opportunity. In terms of Tourism WA, Tourism WA was instrumental in securing the grand final for Perth. We have marketed the state to the non-COVID jurisdictions, South Australia, NT and Tasmania. We have 29 interstate flights and 3,700 people from those jurisdictions, whether it's NT, South Australia, Tasmania, coming into Perth today to enjoy the event and spend up big at our hotels, restaurants, pubs, bars and tourism businesses. Just so you're fully aware what Tourism WA has done. So that marketing has been done. They've also organised the 2021 Toyota AFL Premiership Cup Tour all over Western Australia. They've put the Play On in Perth promotion into effect, offering 50% off city-based tours and experiences for the AFL Grand Final weekend, so lots of people have taken up that opportunity. They put in place a social media campaign targeting South Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania and regional WA during the Grand Final. They set up 2,000 AFL Grand Final accommodation packages which have been sold out for regional WA people in the city, and a whole range of other things I won't take you through, but we're very, I think we should be proud. I think we should be proud as a state. Look, we're very sorry for Melbourne and Victoria, like we are for Sydney, what's happening. But we should be very proud that we're able to hold an historic event in Perth, which is the grand final. 60,000 overwhelmingly West Australian fans going to it. We've had more people who aren't members of clubs having access to the grand final than any grand final in living memory. And so that means more ordinary people, if you like, who aren't members of one of the clubs, have had the opportunity to go to the grand final than any time in living memory. Yesterday I was in Geraldton, and this morning I was in Geraldton, and I met people up there who'd bought packages to come to the city and watch the grand final. So it's spread all over regional WA. It's going to be an exciting event. Let's talk it up. Let's be very proud of what we've achieved.
So what was it TV ads? Was it paper ads? Can you describe what kind of promotion it was for the interstate spectators that could come?
I'll go over it again. So we've got 29 interstate flights, 3,700 people coming into Perth. They put the Play On in Perth promotion, which has been, I think, a social media campaign around the state. So city-based tours and experiences have had all of that. There's been a big social media campaign in South Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania and regional WA. So it's predominantly social media. Bear in mind, we only found out we had the grand final a couple of weeks ago. So putting all this together in short time has been a big effort, but I'd like to thank everyone across government, whether it's in Tourism WA, whether it's in health, whether it's police officers, whether it's the people working at the stadium, for all the work they've done to make sure this is a historic, exciting, wonderful event for our state and our city.
So what do you say to the criticisers?
Be positive. We're holding the AFL Grand Final. Let's be positive. I think this is a great opportunity for our state, and I think we should talk it up.
Do you think that Perth can rival Melbourne's reputation as the events capital of Australia?
Well, we got the Grand Final this weekend. We got the Royal Show. We got the Waffle Grand Final next weekend. We got the Shore Leave Festival in Geraldton. There's festivals and shows happening all over the state over coming weeks and months as spring comes on. I think we have a lot to offer, and we should be very proud of it.
The CFMEU and Master Builders Association have both expressed, they don't want mandatory vaccination in the construction industry. Do you think that that is likely to occur, mandatory vaccination?
We haven't made a final decision, but we're not ruling it out. We need to get people vaccinated, and industries where people work in close proximity that are vulnerable to, one, acquiring it, and secondly, spreading it. We're considering each of them. So we'll make a further decision on these matters over coming weeks and months, but we've already mandated interstate truck drivers, health workers, quarantine workers, port workers, aged care workforce. So we're going through workforces that need to be done, and we'll look what happens in other states before we make final decisions. I don't think we should be deterred. I don't think we should be deterred in these things by some of the outrageous behaviour that has occurred in Melbourne. Need to stand up to that sort of bullying and thuggery and outrageous conduct. I think most of the people, from what I'm told at least, are the sort of extreme right-wing fringe groups who infiltrate and want to be violent and want to bash police and want to cause trouble and want to be I can't even think of the word, but they want to be shocking. So I don't think we should be cowed by them.
WA has never shut down construction in the past. Does the Delta variant mean that that would be more likely in the future?
Oh, well, we're trying not to get an outbreak, and we want to get people vaccinated whilst we don't have one. So just get vaccinated and we can avoid the worst consequences of Delta.
So are you concerned that what happens in Melbourne will happen in Perth if right-wing groups to infiltrate, or have you been in communication with the union to avoid this? If the idea of mandatory vaccination of construction workers doesn't go ahead?
Look, there has been, I think your question is a little bit mixed up there, but there has been communication with the workforce and workforce representatives across the board about what needs to be done. And overwhelmingly, unions are in favour of vaccination. They're in favour of vaccination. They encourage their members to get vaccinated. They understand science and they support science. Now, what we have to do as a state to get people vaccinated, we will do based on health advice and the best interests of the entire state. So we'll make those decisions in the future, but there's already large sections of the workforce that are required to be vaccinated. I expect, and we're looking at currently, the mining industry, but clearly that's another sector that we're looking very closely at. We expect to have final announcements on that soon. But getting West Australians vaccinated and the workforce as heavily vaccinated as we can is important for our future. Look, I know people, some of these outrageous people will protest in the streets and carry on and the like, but we've got an obligation to the state and the people of the state and the older people and the people with disabilities and the people who just want to go about their business without getting sick and dying. And that's our greatest obligation.
Are you surprised by the construction industry sort of preemptively pushing back against mandatory vaccination?
A little bit. I've had lots of builders contact us to say they support mandatory vaccination. So we'll get health advice on it as to what the appropriate course forward is. But getting people vaccinated, particularly in high-risk industries, is something we're already doing, and we'll do more of it in the future.
You were touching on some of the tourists that came in, South Australia and Northern Territory. What were the timeframes in that, and do you have Tasmanian numbers?
The numbers I have is 3,700 people coming into Perth today from South Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania. The breakdown of that was most from South Australia, which you'd understand because it's got a big population. But that's pretty good. For a country that's largely, 60–70% of the population we can't have come in, that's pretty good. And we've got lots of people coming from the regions, as I said to you. So it's very exciting for tourism and it's very exciting for promoting our city, and I think we should be positive about it. Let's not look for the negatives. Let's be positive. This is a great opportunity, an historic event, and we should enjoy it. And even if you can't go to the game, there's all sorts of celebrations and activity and activation outside the ground, and you can watch it on the big screen. You can go to the Royal Show tomorrow, and there's a big screen there, and you can watch the game at the Royal Show. These are wonderful opportunities, and we should enjoy and embrace them.
Do you have any idea how much the AFL has made in ticket sales?
No. No.
You spoke with Youth Gem Radio recently about the possibility of a vaccination clinic being at school leavers. Is there any possibility that there may be a cap, or say like schoolies may need to have a first or a second dose in order to attend official school leavers events?
I'll let the vaccine commander answer your question in a moment. All good. Thank you. Thank you.
Just an answer to a couple of questions. Firstly, about Tasmania. Today we have 4 flights from Tasmania with 580 passengers, and that continues to be the case, that we will monitor and meet every passenger. Look, it's important to make a couple of comments here. The system's been working really well. That's why we are enjoying the liberties we've got. In Western Australia, police officers meet every passenger. That is by land, sea or air. Everyone is stopped and spoken to. A good example is the woman who's now tested positive that's come from Sydney. A few more details about her. She was refused entry on 4 occasions. She applied 4 times to come back, didn't meet the criteria because it's coming from an extreme jurisdiction. So on arrival, she was met, spoken to by 2 police officers. We've reviewed the CCTV. We're satisfied that all the correct PPE and masks were worn. She was questioned as to why she'd arrived. We were not satisfied that she'd obviously met the criteria, and in respect of how she got from the airport to the hotel quarantine, she was placed in detention and escorted by police. In fact, she was the only person on a Transperth bus. No other persons present, escorted by police, wearing full PPE. So that's the sort of thoroughness and attention that we give to these matters. We don't want to take any risks at all, and so we're very confident that all of the procedures taking place there were thoroughly and carefully done, and we take this advice from health in terms of ensuring that whether they're police or airport workers, that all precautions are made, and they were on this instance. A couple of questions about the 31-year-old man attending for the AFL. How was that found? We had examined again. We've done thousands of data matching processes because we were well aware that some people may want to try and bunny hop or try and game the system to get here for the AFL Grand Final or for some other reasons. And in this instance, we're alleging this man did in fact want to come here. In fact, he told police that he wanted to come to the AFL Grand Final. So because we were doing all these checks, we're also getting good information from the community, because other West Australians don't want people jumping the system. So we actually are getting good information from the community, and in this instance, someone advised us confidentially via Crime Stoppers that this man is in fact a person that may have breached. When we interviewed him, he produced what we're alleging is a 7-page false document he produced to police of a residential address in Adelaide. Hence why he was allowed in initially. That's what we're alleging, and that's why he got arrested, that's why he's before the courts. So that's another example, yet again, of the thoroughness that we are, and the controls that we're putting in place. To manage to continue to do this is very resource intensive, but we've got the resources to do it, and we are doing it. But as I'll repeat, as I did in my earlier comments, what we have to do is get everyone vaccinated, because police, health and others cannot continue to do this forever. This is an extreme situation now for 2, in fact, of the highest population states in Australia. We don't want this to happen here. So, my last comment before taking any other questions is, please get the message out there. You need to get vaccinated, because we cannot maintain controls as we're putting in forever. It is simply not going to be practical, and as we work our way through this and the population does get vaccinated, we'll get back to a post-COVID normality. Happy to take any questions.
If it wasn't for that tip-off to Crime Stoppers, this man could possibly have gone to the grand final?
He possibly could have, because we're alleging he's lied. So, I've been in policing for over 40 years. It should not surprise me, and nor should it surprise anyone, that at times people lie to get what they want. The consequences, though, are you're facing imprisonment or $50,000 fine. So, We have courts for those sort of reasons. If people didn't break the law, we wouldn't have police officers in courts. So it should be no surprise that people are trying to game the system.
It was pretty clear though. I mean, he posted on his public social media page that he was in Queensland last week. Is that something that police potentially, could look into? I mean, the evidence was right there.
Are you suggesting that for 5,000 people we're going to surf through everyone's Facebook pages? We can't do that. So what we do is take as much care as possible, require people to do G2G processes, but I simply don't have the officers to surf everyone's social pages. People would then accuse me of being some social media scrutiniser for everyone's. That's not practical in the society we live. So look, after we get evidence, and in this case information provided, well, of course we retrace and do that. But no, we don't surf people's private Facebook.
And the false document you're talking about, that's pretty, brazen, and he obviously planned this out quite well, didn't he?
What we're alleging is now that this man is facing a serious charge. It should be a lesson to others listening and watching. If you're going to try and get into Western Australia by lying and providing false documentation, you're liable to be where this man is, in custody, facing serious charges.
The positive case in hotel quarantine, what sort of penalties is she facing?
So the penalties range from $1,000 up to $50,000. So, we will put the public safety first, and look, from time to time, we've seen this now for some 18 months and longer, where at times people will try and beat the system. The system is the strongest in Australia, and I don't skite about that. It has taken a lot of effort to make sure we do as much as we can. I don't know of any other jurisdiction that stops every single land, sea and air passenger and speaks to them, because I've travelled to some other places. And the controls are tight, but they're tight for a good reason. That's to keep West Australia safe.
Just on the grand final, plenty of country people travelling tomorrow or today, double demerits obviously. What's your message to them?
Well, speed has always been a major factor, so has fatigue. What we do want to do is have a safe weekend. It's a long weekend. It's a common message from me and road safety commissioners and the government itself. Just take time to plan your trip. Don't drive at speed. Take all the necessary precautions and drive according to conditions. We've got great weather for tomorrow, but I do note it's going to be raining on Sunday and through next week. We just want people to take proper care. It's an exciting time to be here. At the same time, we have seen a number of tragedies with road fatalities in the country. A well-loved school bus driver lost his life. We've had a motorcyclist killed down south in recent days. We just want people to go about their business, do it safely, do it sensibly.
Just on the grand final, what sort of presence can we expect policing-wise around the stadium, Northbridge, Yangon Square?
We've got hundreds of police officers in and around Optus Stadium, and we have deployed additional police to surge and support if there is any difficulties. There's some events taking place right through the city, Forest Place, there's a People's Parade, there's at Northbridge a piazza and a live feed. Obviously we've got police deployed at Royal Show and places like that. Look, everyone knows on grand final day people congregate at each other's houses, they go to pubs, they go to special places to celebrate and have a great day. People will be drinking, let me put that straight out there. Don't drink and drive, just be sensible about it. Why overdrink on such a day as this? Some people do. I think I'm a realist about that, but we just want to make sure people are sensible about it. We will have hundreds and hundreds of police out there. They won't be enjoying a weekend off, nor will our workers in the vaccination clinics or in the hospitals. They'll be put under pressure, but we've got plenty of resources out there. We just appeal to the community. Be sensible, enjoy yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.